It came as a shock, a total shock, when I found out that all these years I got screwed up, really screwed up, whenever I got involved in a car or motorcycle accident. Now I've learned my lessons, and I'm revealing them in this show. Tune in to learn the easy peasy playbook for hiring an accident lawyer. 10 secrets you must know so you don't get screwed up when the other party plays hardball in a case of slip and fall, pedestrian, motorcycle, car, bus, 18-wheeler, or construction accident. Stay tuned. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi, the world's biggest infotainment show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. Are you doing fantastic? Are you? I am doing brilliant. I'm doing marvelous. Now, if you are doing marvelous, grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. Now, today I want to talk about a very important topic. Now, Sweetie Kiwi show is as an infotainment show, right? We do information and entertainment, but today we have to talk about something serious: car accident. How to hire the best accident lawyer. Before I jump into the nitty-gritty here, I just want to quickly give a shout out to Ellis Hamilton in Picture Rock, Arkansas, Lady Young in Pantano, Arkansas, and Marley Ball in Continental, Arkansas. Now, before we talk about the best way to hire an accident lawyer, let's first talk about the causes of car, truck, or other motor vehicle accident, right? Now, car accident gave rise to the majority of personal injury claims in the United States, right? This is not surprising given that there are on average 8 million car crashes a year. And this is a number from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So basically, if we want to talk about motor vehicle accident and the law, you have to understand that legal claims arising from motor vehicle accidents are typically governed by the law of negligence. So before you hire an attorney, understand the law of negligence. So generally, people who operate automobiles must exercise reasonable care under the circumstances, right? So a failure to use reasonable care is considered by the court negligence. So a person like a driver who operates a vehicle with negligence may be required to pay for any damages either to a person or property caused by his or her negligence, right? So you have the defendant, which is who is the person who negligently operates a vehicle, and then you have the injured party, who is referred to as the plaintiff. So the plaintiff is required to prove that the defendant was negligent, that the negligence was a proximate cause of the accident, and that the accident caused the plaintiff's injury. So there are three things you have to prove. So if you have a car accident, you have to prove, if you are the plaintiff, if you are the person being hurt, you have to prove that the defendant was negligent. That's number one. That the negligence was a proximate cause of the accident. Number two. And that the accident caused the plaintiff's injury. Number three. Another thing you have to understand is that negligence and motor vehicle accident. So now, as with other type of accidents, it's sometimes difficult, right? You have to decide who was negligent, right? If you have to figure out who is at fault in a traffic accident, you have to first decide who was negligent. So in many cases, your instinct will tell you that a driver, cyclist, or pedestrians acted negligently, right? They acted carelessly, but not what rules that person violated. This is why you have to reach out to an attorney to help you determine who was at fault, whether you were at fault or the other person. And you also need to rely on things like police report, right? Witnesses and state traffic laws. Another thing you have to know, which is very important when talking about negligence, is courts have a long history of jurisprudence when it comes to negligence. So courts look to a number of factors in determining whether a driver was negligent. So some of those factors include, of course, this is not an exhaustive list, right? But these factors include things like disobeying traffic signs or signals, failing to signal while turning, driving above or below the posted speed limit, right? Disregarding weather traffic or weather conditions or traffic conditions, and driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, which is a biggie. You never want to do that. Now, there are other causes of automobile accidents in the United States, according to the National, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. There are other causes. Number one, reckless driving. So a driver may be liable for an accident due to his or her intentional or reckless conduct, right? So if you have a reckless driver, what that means is that the person drives unsafely with clear disregard for the probability that such driving may cause an accident. So those are things that you have to think about and remember before you really initiate a legal claim. So the NHTSA defines aggressive driving as a progression of unlawful driving actions such as speeding above the posted limits, right, or driving too fast for the current conditions. So if it's raining, if it's snowing. So if you also have improper or excessive lane changing, somebody's just going back and forth, changing lanes suddenly, including the failure to signal intent and failure to check that the lane change can be made safely. That's a big no-no. Improper passing, including the failure to signal intent and use of the shoulder, median, or emergency lane to pass, right? Another thing that can be a common cause of accident beside reckless driving is drunk driving. Now, here is a sad statistic, and this statistic, if you're listening to me right now, please help us stop it. On average, every 51 minutes, not even an hour, someone in the United States dies in an alcohol-related crash. Every 51 minutes, someone in the United States dies in an alcohol-related crash, right? So, last year alone, over 1 million people were injured in alcohol-related traffic crashes. This is just crazy, right? So in a lawsuit that results from a drunk driving accident, in addition to the intoxicated driver's liability for the injuries he or she caused, a bar or social host may be liable for damages if they served an obviously intoxicated guest who then drove and caused an accident. So this is very important. We are talking here about indirect and direct liability. So you have primary liability and secondary liability, and sometimes even tertiary liability. So the fact that the person who served the intoxicated driver alcohol may be held liable doesn't relieve the guilty driver of liability, however, right? So this is very important. So there is something called dram shop laws that will tell you a lot more about third-party liability for drunk driving accidents if you're interested in that. Now there is something else I want to share with you in this section, and that is accidents that are not caused by the drivers involved. So in some cases, although this may be rare, accidents are caused by factors that are not related to the conduct of any particular driver, right? For instance, a car accident may happen due to a defect in someone's automobile, right? So in such a case, the car manufacturer or supplier may be responsible for injuries caused by a defect in the automobile under the law of what? Product liability, right? So sometimes when you have recalls and this kind of stuff, is because car manufacturers are trying to reduce their liability under the product liability law. They're trying to reduce their risk. That's why they do a recall. So a product liability suit is a lawsuit brought against the seller of a product for selling a defective product that caused physical injury to a consumer or user. So the thing here is that a manufacturer, the maker of the products, creates a defective product either in designing, manufacturing, or labeling the product. So either way, the manufacturer is liable for any injuries in the product causes, regardless of whether the manufacturer was negligent, because they own the product. So this is why it's very important, if you are a product manager or a product maker, to really make sure there are no defects. Otherwise, you will be sued for product liability. Now, what I'm trying to explain here is that before you hire a car accident lawyer or a lawyer, just an accident lawyer in general, you have to understand what causes car accidents and the law of negligence. It's very important. Now, other factors such as poorly maintained roads can also cause an accident, right? You have malfunctioning traffic control signals, or you also have things like improper design, signage, lighting, or other highway defects, including poorly placed trees, utility poles. Those things can cause serious accidents. So in those cases, if these things happen, then you can sue. If you get involved into an accident, you can sue government entities, so the city or the agency who should have done the work. Now, we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to another section of Sweetie Kiwi. Now we are getting into the real deal here. Why do you need to hire a car accident lawyer? You may need to hire an accident lawyer if you have certain situations. Now, unfortunately, accidents happen every day, right? Car accidents are everyday occurrences now. Most personal injury claims in the United States and Canada, for that matter, are a result of an accident involving a car, truck, or other motor vehicle. And this is just the way things work. So basically, you want to have an expert, a legal expert around you. The majority of those accidents may result in just a minor thing, minor vehicle damage. You can have a fender bender, this kind of stuff, right? So you can just handle it through the insurance company. No biggie, right? Now, there are some car accidents that involve what? Fatality. When you have fatality, then things become very serious. So you have fatality, physical injury, or other critical damage that may warrant the legal representation of an experienced lawyer, right? Because an experienced attorney can help you get compensation to cover losses, right? Losses that not only occurred during the accident, such as damage to your car, but there are also ancillary expenses, such as medical expenses, car repairs, lost wages, this kind of stuff, right? You probably need also a car accident lawyer who can help you recover when a loved one is killed, right? Especially if you have something like reckless driving or drunk driving or speeding. Those things you need the tutelage of experienced counsel. Now, what is reckless driving? This is very important I'm going to quickly define this. Now, reckless driving is driving with a willful or wanton disregard for safety or the operation of a vehicle in which you show a willful disregard of consequences. So you're just driving and you don't care. You don't care about the consequences. You don't care about the law. You don't care about other users of the road. You don't care about other drivers. You just don't care. So when someone is cited for this traffic offense, this is, I'm talking about reckless driving, it is because they have shown a disregard for the rules of the road and may or may not have caused an accident or property damage. So they don't have to cause a property damage here. It's just that the officer will look at the behavior on the road and cite the driver, in this case, the guilty party for the reckless driving. So this is something very important, folks, and I want you to remember this. Most states have laws addressing willful dangerous driving, right? In some states, the violation is referred to as reckless driving. In other states, people call it dangerous driving or careless driving. Either way, all those terms, all those phrases are interchangeable. Reckless driving, careless driving, dangerous driving all mean the same thing. Now, we have to remember, this is one of the most serious traffic offenses and is typically charged as a misdemeanor. as opposed to an infraction, right? So conviction may result in penalties ranging from heavy fines to incarceration in certain cases, depending on state laws. Again, this is biggie. This is the big thing, right? So in some states, and this is another one you want to pay attention to. In some states, certain acts automatically qualify as reckless driving. For instance, if you race another vehicle, if you try to elude a police officer, like, a cop just pulls you over and you don't stop, this is reckless driving. If you drive 25 miles per hour or more over the posted speed limits, and if you have a 2-lane highway passing another vehicle when visibility of oncoming traffic is limited, this is reckless driving. Now, speeding tickets are usually, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, but speeding tickets are easily the most common ticket issued in the United States. In every state, a traffic ticket can be issued to drivers who violate laws restricting the speed at which a vehicle may travel. So the thing you have to remember here is that, generally, I would say 40 out of 50 states, generally the states carry two types of laws related to speed restrictions. So you have laws that set specific maximum speed limits in certain settings, right? For instance, if you are on a state highway, the speed limit is 65. If you are on a residential street, it's 35. And if you are in a school zone, it's 25. So depending on the setting, the city will set specific maximum speed limits. Now and the second part is there are laws that require drivers to operate their vehicles at a speed that is reasonable under the circumstance. For instance, even if the posted speed limit, the maximum speed limit on a rural highway is 65 miles per hour, if you drive on that highway at 65 miles per hour in a torrential rainstorm, right, in bad weather, you can receive a speeding ticket, because driving at such a speed could be deemed unsafe based on the hazardous road and the weather conditions, right? So it's a matter of you checking with the laws of your state and making the right decision, under the circumstances. Now remember that a lot of states change their speeding laws all the time, so you want to double check before, and again, you want to double check before you drive, but most importantly, use common sense. Common sense is the best under all circumstances. We will be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are talking about, the playbook. I'm giving you the playbook for hiring a car accident lawyer, and I'm defining what qualifies as offenses before you even talk to a lawyer. Now, let's talk about what is drunk driving. What is considered drunk driving? Before I do that, let me first quickly give a shout out to Ryan Barrett in La Quinta, California, Olivia Spencer in Santa Helena, California, and Will Holmes in Bernie, California. What is considered drunk driving? Everybody gets a DUI these days, right? And you want to, some people don't even understand what it means. Now, here is a broad overview of how DUI is defined and what authorities must generally prove to get a DUI conviction. Now, God forbid you get into that position, you want to know what DUI is. Now, the majority of state laws define crimes of drunk driving as driving a motor vehicle, in other words, a car, on a road or highway while under the influence of alcohol. This can mean that you have driven poorly, even if your blood alcohol concentration in your back is low, right? So, and the laws change all the time. So newer statutes also provide for what is called a per se offense, which means that a person commits that per se offense when driving a motor vehicle on a road or highway with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08%. Remember that number, 0.8%. This means that even if you have driven perfectly, you can still be charged with driving under the influence. Now, the driving element of DUI laws. Several states require a person to be driving a vehicle in order to be convicted of a drunk driving offense, right? You can't be convicted of a DUI if you're not driving. If you just park the car and are sleeping because you are drunk, then everything is fine. The problem happens once you are behind the wheel on a state or rural road. That's when the problem starts. So other states use the term operating a vehicle or being in actual physical control of the vehicle, right? So it is important to understand how your state, your individual state, define the terms in its laws. One thing that people, a lot of legal experts wants to pay attention to when dealing with the DUI case is, there are several things, but some of the things they want to talk about is the location of the vehicle. Was it on or off roadway? The location of the driver, where in the vehicle, the location of the keys in the vehicle, in and out of the ignition, right? And the operability of the vehicle. In other words, could the vehicle be driven, right? So, and this is the last part is very important. The operability. I'll get there of the vehicle. So the thing here is that the officers generally use three types of evidence to determine whether or not a driver was under the influence. There is something called field evidence, another thing called driver evidence, and blood alcohol evidence. So field evidence is generally collected by police officers and may fall into one of 5 categories. So you have testimony regarding the driver's unusual driving, right? So what they saw. Testimony regarding the driver's conduct or physical appearance. Testimony regarding the defendant's performance during a field sobriety test. And you have, technology, so tapes, film, and or photographs taken at the scene where the defendant was driving and or arrested. And lastly, incriminating statements made by the driver, himself or herself. So that's the field evidence, right? Now, let's look at the driver evidence. Now, police officers will also look at the driver's physical appearance and symptoms of a drunk driver in order to determine if there is evidence that the driver is intoxicated, right? And this is just common sense and the thing is, cops are trained to recognize those signs. So the following are some of the more common symptoms of intoxication. For instance, the defendant's speech is thick and slurred, right? The defendant's breath smells like alcohol. This is, again, going back to what I said about, common sense. The defendant's face appears to be flushed. The defendant's eyes appear to be red, glassy, or bloodshot. The defendant's clothes are disheveled, right? This happens a lot. And the defendant has not shaved or combed his or her hair. So if the defendant's appearance is not, top notch or just, sort of sharp, the officer, among other things, might determine that, there is what they call driver evidence, right? As opposed to field evidence to determine that, to determine whether or not they want to charge the person of DUI. Now, finally, as I said before, there is a third evidence called blood alcohol evidence. So the defendant's back, right? Remember back. So the blood alcohol, content, the blood alcohol concentration. Sorry. Now the cop will look at the driver's back level, and they can determine this through one of 3 methods. The most common of these methods involves an analysis of the defendant's breath, right? And that's the back test. It's very well known. Now, other tests analyze the blood or urine of the defendant. Now, one thing that is very important to understand is that, you should never, if you happen to be in this sort of a situation, these tests are not above reproach, and skilled defense attorneys may be able to successfully attack the methods by which the defendant's back was analyzed, right? So while a driver can refuse certain back tests, there can be serious penalties for refusal. So you always want to make sure that you never get yourself in this position in the first place, and if you do, you need to get a serious attorney to back you up. We will be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to another section of this wonderful show. We are talking about car accidents and how to hire. I'm giving you the playbook to hire a best car accident lawyer. Right now, by car, I'm talking about motorcycle, right? Not just the car, but also motorcycle, 18-wheeler, a bus, construction accident. I'm just giving you the playbook, the easy peasy playbook here. Now let's talk about per se DUI laws. Now, per se laws in DUI or DWI cases generally establish that once a person is shown to have a back stands for blood alcohol concentration. Once the person is shown to have a back at or above 0.08%, that individual will be considered intoxicated by law. So in such circumstances, what happens is that you don't need to have any further evidence of intoxication or impairment. I mean, it's automatically means the person is intoxicated. So that's what the per se is. Now, the existence of these laws throughout the U.S. means that it is important for individuals who are drinking to realize that no matter how sober they themselves feel and behave, it is their back that matters in the eyes of the law once they get behind the wheel, right? So if you think, I'm doing good, I'm doing fantastic, I can drink two shots or 3 shots or 10 shots, everything is fine because I am sober. The law enforcement doesn't care about that. They care about your back. If your back is above 0.08, then you are in deep trouble. So if it exceeds the per se legal limit, then you are legally presumed to be impaired, even though personally you feel comfortable, right? So these laws make it easier for the prosecution to establish that an individual was impaired without requiring much on-scene evaluation such as sobriety tests and the like, right? Because if you remember earlier, I talked to you about 3 evidences that officers use, right? So field evidence, driver evidence, and blood alcohol evidence. So if the officer doesn't need to pay attention to field evidence or driver evidence, if the third type of evidence shows that the concentration level is above 0.8%, then the driver is considered guilty. The driver can be prosecuted. Now, the thing is that you can challenge the result of a blood or breath test, right? So, of course, the laws are not above reproach. They're not beyond reproach, right? So these laws don't mean that all defendants who register as 0.8, a dot 0.8, 0.08, that's what I mean, not 0.8. 0.08 back or higher face an open and shut scenario, right? I mean, for example, defendants can and do challenge everything from the validity of the test results to the machines used to collect these results, as well as the procedures that were used, right? So if you check online, there is this is a wide area of other offenses in criminal DUI cases which can be raised before or during trial. Now, I just want to quickly talk about drugs and per se laws, right? So the back limits established by per se DUI laws do not address driving under the influence of drugs. This is another important thing. There are several states that have per se laws addressing drugged driving. So these states, they have these types of laws on their books, and what they do is those laws are prosecuted I'm going to give you a few of the states. I mean, you have Arizona, Illinois, Minnesota, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Virginia, Wisconsin, Iowa, Georgia, Delaware, right? Of these 3 states, Nevada, Ohio, and Virginia, establish specific limits for the presence of intoxicating drugs, while the rest of the states establish a zero tolerance. They have a zero tolerance rule with regards to the presence of intoxicating drugs in a person's system. So this is very, very key here. Now, in addition to the challenges that can be raised in DUI cases, it is very important to understand that basically, prosecution under per se laws, in drug cases, they face the added challenge of having to establish the presence of a particular listed type of banned substances, right? So it can be more complicated. So what happens is that most prosecutor would rather just fall on the DUI. It's just a lot easier. Okay. Now, one thing that I also want to talk about before we close this section is underage drivers and zero tolerance. Now, underage drivers often are faced with even more strict measures than standard per se back levels, right? If you are, if you're a motorist under the legal drinking age, if you are 16 or 14, or if you are younger than the average, age, not the average, the legal age of driving in your state, you would face zero tolerance rules. In other words, those rules that make it illegal to test for absolutely any amount of alcohol concentration in your blood. And the rationale behind this laws is that drinking alcohol is prohibited for those under the age of 21 or 18, depending on where you live, and thus any amount of alcohol in underage driver system should be punished, right? So, and there are myriads of offenses, but these types of offenses generally they trigger the loss of drinking privileges to varying degrees. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to another section of this program. I hope you are having a good time so far. Of course, we are talking about a very serious topic, right? Law, car accident can be a little somber as a topic, but it's interesting. It's interesting to know, before you get yourself in trouble, or if a relative is in trouble, to understand how to proceed. This is what we're trying to do here. And if you find this content relevant so far, and you are able to understand certain things, please consider subscribing to our channel. We cover this very relevant, this kind of relevant topic all the time, sometimes every day. And subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you are notified whenever we release new content. And we do so every day, as I said before, and sometimes several times a day if we are in a good mood. If we have the resources, we can do so. Please share the content, like it, comment below, give us your experience regarding DUI and other stuff. And also, please consider watching our ads. It's very important for us because this show is ad supported. We rely on ads to be able to support our production team, to get the resources, to cover more topics, in order to be able to provide you with free, top quality products and content. All right. Now, we want to also give a shout out to our fans over the world and in the United States of America. We want to give a shout out to Owen Austin in Violet Field, and that is Arizona. We have Victoria Watts in Black Oak, Arizona, and Frankie Holland in Van, the beautiful city of Van, Arizona. So now, what to look for when hiring a car accident attorney? Again, when I'm talking about car here, just remember that we are talking in general about bus, about 18-wheeler, about motorcycle, because most car accident attorneys have broad experience, and they can help you, on various various things in various situations. So what should you look for when hiring a car accident attorney? Now, car accident attorneys cover a wide range of issues. And again, as I said before, these issues range from personal injury to liability determination, from wrongful death to property destruction, right? So when you're looking for a lawyer, it's very important to concentrate on 4 things. Actually, 5 things. And this is a biggie, folks. I want you to take a piece of paper and just write it down. Write it down. I'm gonna wait. I will wait for you. All right, are you ready? So when thinking about hiring a car accident attorney, you should concentrate on their fee structure, how much they're charging. Concentrate on their location. Concentrate on their experience. Concentrate on their commitment. And concentrate on their skill level, right? So commitment really means that you just want to make sure that you hire someone who has time for you, right? Like some lawyers are so busy, they really don't have time for you, and they're constantly sort of you're playing phone tags with them. You call them, they don't call you back. You have to call them again, and you have to chase them. So that's commitment. And the worst thing that could happen to you is that you have an important DUI case, for example, and your lawyer is nowhere to be found. So those are 5 things. Again, I'm going to repeat them. Experience. So you have fee structure, location, experience, skills, and commitment. So one thing you want to make sure is, for instance, is that your lawyer should be well immersed in the subtleties of state and national transportation laws, right? He or she has to know how to effectively prepare and settle a case, right? And he or she has to also know how to deal with insurance and healthcare companies. Those are important things that only experience and practice bring along the way. You also want to check the attorney's background. So you also want to check their track record and their references, and you might want to go to the lawyer, to the state board to get more info about their track record, whether they have been disciplined. This is very important also, right? So if you have a good attorney, they should be able to accept your case on a contingency or no-win, no-fee basis. So if an attorney feels that your case has any merit, if they believe that they can win for you, they will accept a contingency basis or no-win, no-fee basis. So it's important to check the attorney's standard fee structure. Now, when should you hire a car accident lawyer? I think generally I would recommend you hire an attorney early on to avoid any costly mistake, right? As soon as you are in trouble, or a relative is in trouble, just contact an attorney ASAP. So the deadline for filing personal injury claims varies from state to state, right? Because you might need to pay for healthcare costs and cover lost wages. The sooner you contact an attorney, the better. So, in general, I basically recommend that, and that's what professionals recommend, that you contact an attorney shortly after the accident occurs. So within a week or 2 of the accident, but before reaching a settlement with the insurance companies, right? You want to give yourself some flexibility, some operational flexibility. So do it ASAP, but before you reach a settlement with the insurance company. Now there are some questions you need to ask the attorney. There are certain things you need to ask, so you have better information about what kind of contractual agreement you are going to have with this particular attorney, right? So before working with a lawyer, you should have as much detailed information and facts about the car accident, as well as any damages or injuries or financial losses as possible. Now, there are some documents you might want to show your attorney after an accident, and this include things like medical records, information exchanged at the accident scene, and your insurance policy, right? And there are some questions that you should ask before hiring a car accident attorney. For example, how are your fees structured? What percentage of your practice is committed to car accident cases, right? So if, for instance, the attorney tells you, listen, 50% or 70% of our cases are car accident cases, then you know they have experience, right? What experience do you have with the specific type of injury in question? What is a typical settlement range for cases similar to mine? Right? Another question that you want to ask the attorney is, what are, out-of-pocket expenses am I responsible for? So this will kind of tell you, what you need to, the kind of condition you have to put yourself into, so you know exactly how to handle your case. Especially you want to know more also about the fees, right? The structuring of the fees is important. So this is really about, this is what you need to ask your attorney. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to another section of Sweetie Kiwi Show. I hope that you are doing fantastic. You are doing wonderful. You are enjoying this content so far. I am enjoying it. So next, I want to talk about documents you have to show your attorney after a motor vehicle accident. Now, I told you the questions you have to ask the attorney. This is very important, so you know what's really happening. But you also have to ask, you also have to provide something called evidentiary, documentation. So you have to give certain documents to the attorney. So if you have been involved in a car accident and you want to hire an attorney to handle the case for you, or you have already retained a lawyer to represent you, it is important that you forward certain documents to your attorney ASAP, and this will help him or her understand your case and give you the probability of recovery, right? So now I'm going to give you a quick rundown of documents that your attorney might need. And again, the quicker you can forward those documents to the attorney, the better, because he or she will have to understand your case before start representing you. So your insurance policy. So if you have an insurance policy, if you have a car insurance policy, it is important that your attorney see a copy of it, because then they can determine what type of insurance recovery you may be entitled to. So don't worry if you don't have an actual copy of your policy. It's okay. Your attorney can get one from your insurance company, of course, with your approval. Now, you want to show your attorney evidence of premium payments. So the attorney wants to make sure that you are current, your policy is current. So, he or she will need proof that your car insurance policy premium have been paid, because you cannot file a claim if you're not current with your insurance company, right? So usually when you make a payment, you receive periodic statements or bills from your insurance company, right, that notify you that your premiums are due. So if you're able to show this, if you're able to provide your lawyer with that sort of documentation, as well as evidence of your payment, right? It could be a receipt of payment or a canceled check, or you can even take a snapshot, a screenshot of your statements, your bank statement, and send it to your lawyer. All these things will prove that your policy is in force and paid up. This is what I mean by you are current, if you're current with your policy. Now, you also want to send to your attorney any kind of data exchanged or transferred at the accident scene, right? So when you have an accident, occasionally you'll have names and telephone numbers are exchanged between the parties, right? While they were still at the scene. So if you have that info, even if you have already reached out to the parties, make sure you send that to your attorney. It's very important, because the attorney is trying to constitute a dossier, is trying to constitute a file, some paperwork to be able to represent you properly, right? And he or she needs certain documents. So if she needs to contact the defendant or the plaintiff, depending on your position in the car accident, your attorney will need to contact that person. You also want to give your attorney any info that you have provided to the police at the accident scene, right? If the police were called, to the scene of your accident, the cops are required to draft an accident report, and usually such a report encompasses a diagram of where the various cars or pedestrians were at the time of the accident, right? This is just some kind of pictorial, some kind of infographic of the scene. So this is important because this report will also have the unseen officer's initial impressions of the cause of the accident. So the cop will say what he or she thinks, caused the accident. And this is very pivotal information because it allows your attorney to sort of understand the case completely, right? So provide your attorney with a copy of the accident report or anything. It doesn't have to be a structured documentation. It doesn't have to be something like anything else that was drafted by cops. Try to send it to your attorney. Now, if you don't have a copy of that police report, your attorney will be able to obtain one on your behalf. You just have to authorize him or her. Now, another thing you need to send to the attorney is tickets associated with the accident. If you have been given a ticket, related to the accident, make sure you let your attorney know, right? Because this is very critical. For example, you could be charged with failure to yield, and your lawyer would want to have a copy of that ticket also. Again, the bottom line here is that your lawyer is trying to develop here a total understanding of your case, and by giving him or her, by providing him or her all the important documents, he or she will be able to understand your case and better defend you. You want to also send to your attorney photographs of the accident, right? So if your automobile was damaged in the accident, it's good to take pictures of the damage, right? So, and if you didn't take pictures, chances are your insurer would have sent a representative to take pictures for you. So if you have pictures in your possession, just give them to your attorney. If you don't have pictures, but if you believe that the insurance company may have some, just give that info to the attorney as well. Another thing that is very critical when it comes to documentation you need to send to your attorney is statements, right? So if you are involved in an accident, you may be, a representative of your insurance company may have reached you. So, the insurer will want to obtain a statement from you about the accident. So if you are contacted, you have a right to a copy of any statement that you give, right? So if you have that copy, just send it to your attorney. If you don't have a copy, just let your attorney know, and she can get or he can get a copy for you, right? So this is very very important. Now remember that if you are involved in a car accident, right? If you're involved in a car accident, you're not, generally you're not required to give a statement to the insurance company, particularly once you have hired an attorney to represent you. So if if an insurance company reaches you after you hire an attorney, make sure that you let your attorney know. Other things that you need to send to your attorney is medical records, right? If you are involved in an accident and you have sustained physical injuries for which you sought medical care and attention, it is important to send it to the attorney. Again, if you don't have them, you can authorize, in writing, your lawyer to obtain such records. The same applies for psychological records. This is also an important thing because remember, a lot of accidents, may have an emotional or mental impact on you, right? And this might require you to seek psychological or psychiatric care. So it's important to let the attorney know. Another thing that is, and this is the last thing that you might need to send to your attorney, is your pay records. So if you've lost time from work as a result of the car accident, your lawyer may be able to obtain compensation for your lost wages. So it is important that your attorney needs to calculate how much cash you have lost as a result of the car accident. So so having evidence of your pre-accident earnings, the money you were making before getting to the accident, and your post-accident earnings will help your attorney make this calculation, right? So they will compare your pre-accident cash earnings, your income, and your post-accident income to see the delta. Once they have the delta, the difference, the variance, they should be able to make a calculation and get some money for you. All right, we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to this beautiful edition of the Sweetie Kiwi Show. That we are here talking about car accidents and trying to help folks understand how to navigate the law. And today, I just want to quickly give a shout out to our millions of fans in the United States and abroad. First, we want to give a shout out to Alexander Whitehead, and he is in Salisbury, that's in the United Kingdom. Jackie Ryers, she is in Salisbury, also in the United Kingdom. And we have Kaylee Bowers, she's also in Salisbury in the United Kingdom. So we say a big shout out to all our viewers and listeners and fans in Salisbury in the UK. Thank you so much, Alexander Whitehead, Jackie Rios, and Kaylee Bowers. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Now, let's talk about how to obtain and use a police report. A lot of people don't even know they are entitled to a police report after an accident. If you have been involved in a car accident or any other accident to which a law enforcement officer responded, a police report was probably generated. Now, so you are entitled to receive a copy of this report, right? So it's always a good opportunity to contact law enforcement as soon as possible after the incident. Now, there are some steps you need to follow to get a copy of the report. If you know the name of the agency, just go on the internet, search for them and call them to request a copy of the report. It's just as easy as that. Now, you may need to pay a small fee, right, for things like photocopy or whatever, right? And the thing is that the agency might require you to appear in person to pick up the report. That's okay, right? You have nothing to hide. You have nothing to be scared about. So depending on where you live, some agencies will mail you a copy of the report at no charge. Again, it depends on where you live and your state's laws. Now, a police report can help a lot in an injury case. How? The thing here is that a police report generally is not, itself is not, it's not admitted actually in civil court proceedings, but it can go a long way toward gaining negotiation leverage in any personal injury dispute, right? So, for example, during informal settlement discussions, if your lawyer is doing informal settlement discussions with opposing counsel or an insurance officer, you and your attorney, or your attorney can use the facts and conclusions found in the police report to gain an edge on various issues. For example, circumstances of the incident, including the weather conditions at the time, the date, the specific location, and the time of the day. And another area where you might gain an advantage by having a police report is that the preliminary assessment of fault, especially in motor vehicle accident, right? So for example, after a car accident, a police report might have a responding officer's observation as to which driver might have violated the state's vehicle code, right? Or whose driver's carelessness may have caused the accident. Remember, a police officer is a law enforcement agent, right? So his or her opinion will carry weight in a car accident case, right? Now, another thing that you need to know is that it's important to identify information of witnesses, because the thing here is that in addition to providing leverage during discussions on central issues such as fault for an accident, for example, a police report goes a longer way. It can contain the identifying information of anyone who might have witnessed the incident, or anyone, in certain cases, anyone who had arrived on the scene soon afterwards. So if you have the name, the cell phone number, the address of anybody, any witness, what's important here is that this might help to contact your lawyer, might contact this person directly. So one thing that you want to make sure you have is that you get the police report, because at a minimum, a police report will list the name and telephone number of the witnesses and those at the scene. And in some situation, the report can even have witness statements, which is even wonderful, right? Witness statement about what happened. So if you have contact information for those people, especially a record of their view as to what took place, this could be a pretty valuable asset for you and your attorney when proving what happened and who was at fault, right? Now, another thing you have to know is that the police report is not like the Bible. Sometimes the info in the police report may be incorrect, right? Now, the question is, can you amend a police report if you believe that the cop inaccurately, represented what really happened? Fortunately, and this is a big fortunately, it is possible to amend a police report in certain circumstances, because the law understands that a cop is also a human being, and humans are susceptible to error or omissions, right? So while changing or modifying a factual error in a police report, while this is a relatively simple process, if you have to amend a disputed fact, such as who was at fault, this is typically more difficult, right? So one thing you want to do is you want to contact your local department, your local police department, to learn about the appropriate steps, right? So in many cases they'll make it very easy for you, and the appropriate step just may involve simply adding your statement to the accident report, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less, really. So this is really what you need to know about obtaining and using a police report to advance your case and gain a competitive edge in an accident accident litigation. I'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to we're still giving you a playbook, an easy peasy playbook for hiring an accident lawyer, right? And the interesting thing we're talking about here is that there are many elements involved in a car accident, and you want to have as much info before it happens to you. Or if you have a relative or a friend who is currently involved in this sort of cases, you might want to forward and share this info so everybody knows what to do in a difficult situation. And one thing you have to understand is that most legal claims that you file in civil court, they never reach trial stage, right? I mean, most are resolved through some kind of negotiation, some kind of negotiated settlement among the parties, and this is a win-win, right? Because nobody really wants to go to court. It's costly, and the consequences might not be what they want. So it's better to you can even have an informal settlement before people even file a lawsuit, right? So now, through settlements, what happens is that the plaintiff in a civil case agrees to give up the right to pursue any further legal action in connection with the case, right? And this is something. This is just the basics. Now, usually the plaintiff will agree to forego this right to pursue any legal action in exchange for the payment of an agreed upon sum of money from the defendant. And usually, the money comes from the defendant's insurer. So the money, if the defendant has the proper insurance policy, then the defendant's insurance company will cover that, right? So now it is important to know that instead of paying money, the defendant will agree to perform a certain action or cease performing a certain action, right? So one thing you have to understand here is that, and this is the session I want to talk about here. I want to tell you that there is the possibility of resolution before trial. So you have settlement and alternative dispute resolution. So now, if you're thinking about settling a legal claim in your civil case, right? Or let's say you just receive, a nice settlement letter from your insurance, the defendant's insurance company. Just make sure that you talk to your attorney about it, right? And because you want to make sure that your attorney, can really thoroughly go through the offers of settlements and make sure that your rights are being protected and that you're not being shortchanged here, that they're not giving you more money than you should have received, right? So you have to consider a few points here. You have to think about what your lawyer tells you. The lawyer will tell you, for instance, if the case is worth a certain amount of dollars, really. The lawyer can also tell you the verdicts and settlement in similar cases. Another thing the lawyer might tell you is your chances of winning a trial. So instead of settling for a lower amount, the lawyer might tell you, hey, listen, we want you to pursue this case because you have some serious cash or some serious dough to make there. So you should consider going a little further, right? And also, you also might want to think about whether or not, there is some kind of unfavorable publicity for either side, really. Sometimes you also want to think about the practical difficulties in trying the case, right? So there are also things like if there are weaknesses in your evidence, right, or weaknesses in your opponent's evidence. You also want to think about the amounts of the defendant's insurance coverage. So those are things that really are important. Now, before you even accept anything else, you also want to think about the defendant's own monetary resources. So again, what I'm trying to tell you here is, if you want to consider resolution before trial, there are certain questions you have to answer, or there are certain questions you have to have your lawyer answer for you, right? So the defendant's own monetary resources, the extent to which your opponent is likely to play hardball. So if they are likely to make your life difficult, you want to sort of gauge their strength and weaknesses. You also want to talk about what you are willing to concede. What you're willing to concede in order to get the case settled. This is very important, and you have to know in your mind before the get-go, you have to know the minimum amount you will accept. Right? You also have to think about, the possibility of a partial settlement. In other words, you want to settle the easy issues first while you continue to negotiate the more contentious issues, right? So you kind of have a double strategy here. And this is something that is legal, right? The courts have accepted. There is enough jurisprudence around that. So you have partial settlements. It gives you a small win, but it's a good win, and then you negotiate the rest. Also, you can also talk about whether you are willing to concede in order to get the case settled, right? You also one thing you also want to think about here is that money. You want to think about how much you have to pay your lawyer, but most importantly, the IRS. So if you are the plaintiff, ask how the settlement payments will affect your federal and state income taxes, right? If you are the plaintiff, also ask how much the settlement proceeds will be applied to your lawyer's fees and expenses. So those are things you want to think about before, this should be part of your overall legal strategy as you embark on a settlement process, or you want to call you want to embark on something called an alternative dispute resolution process. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks. We are back again, and we are talking about, for those who just joined us, we are talking about today about how to hire a car accident lawyer. More specifically, I am giving you 10 secrets you must know so you don't get screwed up when the other party plays hardball in a case of slip and fall, pedestrian, motorcycle, car, bus, 18-wheeler, or construction accident. You want to get an accident lawyer ASAP. Now, one thing I also wanted to talk to you about is the fact that we have seen the importance of resolution. We have seen the importance of getting a police report, right? Now, I want to talk to you about car accident liability, how to prove fault in a car crash. Again, here, folks, I'm talking about car, but this could be applied to motorcycle, 18-wheeler, bus, the whole gamut, right? Because these principles are interchangeable. The laws is written in a way that any motor vehicle that is engaged on a highway or on a roadway must respect certain rules. So if you are involved if you get in trouble or somebody else gets you in trouble, you can use the same rules that I'm giving you here to win a case or to settle, regardless of the equipment or the machinery, the vehicle you were using, right? If you're using a truck or using an 18-wheeler, using a bus, using an SUV, using a motorcycle, doesn't matter, right? So now I want to talk to you about car accident liability, proving fault, how you can prove fault. Before I do so, I want to give a fan shout out, again to Randy Tucker. She is in Christchurch City, New Zealand. Randy, thank you so much. Chris Mejia in Christchurch City, New Zealand, and Mallory Atkinson again in Christchurch City, New Zealand. We give a big shout out to all our fans in New Zealand, Australia, in the United Kingdom, South Africa. We love you. Thank you so much. Of course, we give a big hug to our millions of fans and listeners and viewers in the United States and Canada as well as the rest of the world. Thank you so much. Now let's talk quickly about how to prove fault. Now, car accidents and in all car, motorcycle accidents, bike, you name it, bus, 18-wheeler accidents, it is important to prove who was liable or responsible, right? You want to identify and prove who made the mistake or was negligent. So there are a few things that I think I already talked about, but I'm going to quickly go through again so you have a better understanding. So car accident and police report. Usually, police don't always come to the scene of an accident, but if they do, the officer will probably have to make some sort of report. Now that report will have to go into the records if the case goes to court, because a police officer is a law enforcement agent. His or her opinion carries weight. What he has seen, what she has thought about, this will be put into a police report, and the judge might have to look at it to make a determination at the end. Right now, it's always advisable to get a report, as I said earlier, by going to the station. You can amend the police report by adding your statements. Right now, certain things are easy to dispute, others are not. So, for instance, if there is a factual error, like if you have the insurance information, wrong information, or incorrect vehicle information, that can be amended. By things that are disputed, like who is at fault, it's very difficult. The third thing is that if you have to prove fault in a car crash, there are something called state traffic laws, right? This is usually called the vehicle code, right? this is another great place to find support for your argument that the other driver was at fault. So, what you need to do is that if you go online, if you go to your DMV website, those laws can be found, and they're often condensed into something called rules of the road, and those are simple to read. Rules of the road. So what you want to do is you want to get a copy of that and search for that particular text that applies to your particular case. Now, certain kinds of accidents will almost always be one driver's fault. And, in this situation, insurance companies don't even argue about which driver is responsible. And what they want to do is they will want to settle immediately, right? That's called no fault car accident liability. So, you also have things like rear end collisions, right? Of course, rear end collisions are one of the most common types of accident, right? If a car hits you from behind, it will almost never be your fault, even if you stopped. Because, one primary driving rule is that you are supposed to leave enough room in front of your car to stop whenever the car in front of you stops suddenly. Right? So this is what I was talking about earlier, that your insurance company will most likely attempt to settle immediately. So if the driver behind you couldn't stop, he or she probably wasn't driving safely. So when one car's rear end is damaged and another car's front end is damaged, there really isn't much to argue about who hit who, right? So those are things you have to really think about as you navigate the laws. Now, another thing I want to also talk about is left turn collisions, right? That's the same thing. Similarly, left turn accidents are almost always the fault of the driver taking the left turn, because cars that are coming straight into an intersection will have the right of way in most cases. So that makes the car turning left responsible for the accident. So, and again, those are part of the rules of the road. So if the car going straight through the intersection is speeding or runs a red light, this may shift some or all of the liability away from the car turning left, right? Rarely, if the car started turning left while it was safe to do so but was forced to stop because of some unforeseen circumstance, then some of the liability may be shifted. So those are things that you have to think about or keep in mind when there is a car accident liability, how to prove fault in a car crash. All right, I will be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to we are still here, still talking about car accidents this is a very serious topic. If you enjoyed this topic so far, if you think this is adding value to your life, consider actually subscribing, and hit the bell notification so you are notified whenever we drop a new content, a new show every day. Like this show if you believe it's adding value to your life. Share with someone whom you believe will need this kind of show. You also can comment below, give us your experience, tell us your experience about car accidents. What kind of motor vehicle were you operating when you got into an accident? How were you able to solve it? What are the circumstances under which you can get a waiver? Tell us more about your experience. Now, let's talk about after you have a car accident. Now, those who just joined us, if you just joined us, I am giving you an easy peasy playbook for hiring a car accident lawyer. I'm giving you 10 secrets you must know so you don't get screwed up when the other party plays hardball in the case of slip and fall, pedestrian, motorcycle, car, bus, 18-wheeler, or construction accident. This is very important. And the thing is that it came as a total shock when I found out that all these years I got screwed up, really screwed up whenever I got involved in a car or motorcycle accident. Now I learned my lessons, and I'm revealing these lessons in this show. So keep on watching and listening. Now, let's talk about a very important thing here, which is after a car accident, what are the first steps? once you're involved in a car accident, there are a few things you have to do, right? Because when an accident occurs, injuries may be severe and emotions high. That's normal, right? Nonetheless, there are critical things to do at the scene of the accident and afterwards, right? Now, I'm going to give you a quick list, a quick rundown of things that you need to do at the scene. The very first thing you need to do is stay at the scene. Stay at the scene. Don't move. All right? Never leave the accident scene until it is proper to do so, because if you leave, particularly when someone has sustained injuries or was killed, you can face serious criminal penalties for being a hit and run driver. This is very important, folks. So stay in the scene. Don't panic. Don't leave. Don't do anything. Just keep patient. Be patient. Another thing you want to do is you want to check on all drivers and passengers. This is very important. Before you start thinking about who is at fault, who is to blame, blah 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 blah. Make sure that everybody, every human being, and every animal, every pet is safe. So make sure everybody is okay. When I'm talking about everybody, I'm talking about everybody, including animals, including pets. Get medical attention for anyone or any animal who needs it. If a person or animal is unconscious or has a neck or back pain, don't move them until qualified medical help arrives, unless, a hazard, a danger requires moving the person. The next thing you want to do, and this is very important, you want to call the police. I know people always sort of think, oh, should I call the police? Yes. Even if you're scared that you are at fault, call the police. You want to call the police ASAP because you might save some life and you also might save yourself. So if there is significant property damage, death, or physical injury, you need to call the police. Now, remember that we said that I talked about getting a police report, right? This is very important. Exchange information. Again, stay at the scene and exchange information. That's what you want to do. You want to exchange information with the other party. Get their names, addresses, numbers, driver's license numbers, license plate numbers, and basic insurance information from all drivers involved. If there are passengers, also obtain their names, numbers, and addresses. Right? Now, the thing is that you want to maintain etiquette, right? You want to maintain some courtesy here. So try to be cordial, try to be cooperative, right, while talking to them. The thing is that never apologize for anything at the scene, right? Never do this thing, because, for instance, if you say, oh, listen, I'm sorry, I ran the red lights, is everything okay, whatever, you may be admitting legal liability for what happened. So immediately after an accident, it is not clear who was at fault or primary. So, it is never clear who had the primary or secondary fault. So never say anything that might cost you down the road. The next thing you want to do is talk to witnesses, right? So, ask every witness what he or she saw. And the thing is, if it is possible, you want to get their names. You want to get their numbers, you want to get their addresses, whatever. You also want to ask locals. For example, if the accident happened, if the car accident happened in front of a store or a restaurant, you want to ask the locals if they witnessed or seen anything in the same place, right? Because if the accident happened because of a structural problem in a location, this might work in your favor, because you might be able to sue the city, right, or the private company which that owns that particular place. Another thing you want to do very ASAP after getting involved into an accident is to inform your insurance company. This is very critical. You want to promptly tell your insurance company that you've been in an accident. So you want to be fully cooperative, right? You want to tell them the truth. Don't try to sugarcoat things. Don't sugarcoat things, even if you are at fault, right? You want to tell them what happened and the extent of your injuries. You want to explain the facts clearly. Because the thing is, if the insurer finds out that you have lied to them about anything, you can get into serious trouble, right? Including possible denial of coverage for the accident, right? So one thing you also want to do is you can even send them the police report, so you can point out who broke what traffic laws or who was at fault. Another thing you want to do after leaving the scene is that you want to keep track of your medical treatment, right? Because this is very important, because this involves cost, this involves treatment, this involves money. So you want to basically know how much you're spending or how much the insurance company will have to spend on a medical treatment. And the good thing is that medical costs are relatively easy to document, right? So you need to do that, and you want to take pictures. Take pictures of any damage to your car as soon as possible after the accident, right? Because photos can help your insurer, your insurance adjuster, determine how much you should be compensated for the damage to your car, and can help you in court, right? So the good thing is also the cool thing here is that photos of your car, of your vehicle before and after the accident can offer a great variance analysis, right? What people call compare and contrast, to show the true extent of the damage sustained in the accident, right? Another thing you want to do here is that you really want to also think about getting a property damage valuation, right? This will also help you in determining basically the extent of the damage here. So property damage valuation is also very important, and usually the insurance company can take care of that. Now, whenever you talk to anybody, right, you talk to your insurance company, the police, just make sure that you are very cautious in discussing the incident. Don't get too excited about early settlement offers. If you are offered a settlement from an insurance company, you want to make sure that you confirm that all your physical and mental injuries have been treated, because physical injuries can be seen, but the mental injuries linger and can be there many years. So you want to contact a psychiatrist, so that if there is any cost associated with the treatment, that could also be covered by the insurance company, right? So make sure that you actually talk to your lawyer about that, because some injuries don't show up or reach their greatest level of discomfort until many days, weeks, or months later, right? So don't settle a claim early until you'll be compensated for all your injuries. And again, contact your attorney before signing any settlement documents. And the last thing I want to say, which might be very important, which is also important, is that if the accident result in significant damage, if anyone was injured in the accident, it's just best to consult an experienced attorney, because this attorney can help you maximize your recovery if you are injured, or better defend yourself if you're at fault, right? Either way, you are actually winning by having a legal expert. You want to have somebody well versed in the subtleties of traffic laws, somebody who can defend you, right? So many car accident attorneys work on a contingent fee basis, and I'm going to talk about that in the next session. So this is something that you want to think about. I'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks. I hope you are doing fantastic. We are having fun. We're still talking about a very important topic here. And before I get into the last part of this show, I just want to give a shout out to Blaze Cooley in Westmoreland City, Pennsylvania, and Jude Guerrero in Glen Riddle, Pennsylvania, and Kelly Hewitt in Westport, Pennsylvania. They are saying thanks and giving big hugs to all our listeners and viewers and friends from the great city and great state of Pennsylvania. Now, when it comes to legal fees, I just want to say that most car accident cases are handled on a contingency or no win, no pay basis. There are only two scenarios here. Number one, contingency. Number two, no win, no pay basis. Now, contingency is very easy, right? It means that you get a certain percentage of you know, of the settlement. That's what you give to the lawyer. So this means that if the attorney does not win or settle the case on your behalf, that's the no win and no pay here. That means that if the lawyer does not win or settle the case on your behalf, he or she does not collect the fee. This is very good. Think about that, right? That means that if an attorney accepts your case, then you're sure that he or she knows that he or she is going to win, right? So on the other hand, if the attorney wins the case, they'll get a percentage of the personal injury award. Now, the attorney's percentage varies from case to case, right? But it can equal anywhere from 30% to 45% of the total awards, with different limits imposed from state to state. I mean, states have a very tight regulation as to how much attorneys can charge. Now, the bottom line here is that, you know, attorney fees are different from costs, and you may be responsible for certain out-of-pocket expenses associated with your case. So before you sign anything with the attorney, make sure that he or she explains to you all the different costs, the variety of costs and fees that are associated with your particular case, so you know which kind of stuff you're getting yourself into, right? So this is really about it. This sort of wrapped up this show. I just want to quickly recap, folks, here and tell you what we've been talking about. So in this conversation, we discussed why it was important to understand, you know, the causes of a car, truck, or other motor vehicle accident. We discussed why it is important to understand why you may need to hire a car accident lawyer, something called per se DUI laws, what to look for when hiring a car accident attorney, documents to show your attorney after a motor vehicle accident, obtaining and using a police report, resolution before trial, settlements, alternative dispute resolution, car accident liability, proving fault in a car crash, after a car accident, what are the first steps you need to follow, and the legal fees. Sort of have, and we talk about the contingency versus the no win and no pay. Now, here is a call to action. We really want to understand these things, which is very important. The call to action today is that you want to hire a car accident lawyer if you or your relatives are currently coping with the aftermath of a traffic accident. Ask the attorney for his or her references and check them. Have the attorney also review pending accident claims that have been dragging on for months. You want to contact your state's DMV to have a copy of your driving records. And you want to check whether you've been put on the SR22 list or any other category where your license might have been, revoked. So this is very important because, we did a whole show on the SR22 car insurance requirements. You might want to check. You might want to check that, because if you've been, involved in DUI cases, chances are your license might have been revoked. So you want to double check that. All right. And finally, I want to tell you about the pro tip, and this is very, very important, folks. About while hiring a car accident lawyer or when dealing with a car crash in general, here is today's pro tip. But before that, I'll be right back right after this. All right, here are today's pro tips. Keep tracks of your bills and expenses associated with the accident. Do not make any statement to other insurance companies. Consult an experienced personal injury lawyer. Keep a diary. Always take photographs. And again, do not make any statements on the scene. Thank you, folks. I hope you loved this show. Enjoy, be successful, and be marvelous. I'll see you next time.